My name is Amanda Blake. I'm 38 years old. At 7:23 on Christmas evening, my sister stood at the head of our mother's dining table, lifted her wine glass, and announced to 14 relatives that I could not have children. Not gently. Not by accident. She smiled first. That was the part one, remember most clearly. My sister Lauren wore a red velvet dress, diamond earrings her husband had given her the year before, and the confident expression of a woman who believed every room belonged to her if she entered it loudly enough. The chandelier above our parents' table caught the rim of her glass and made it look like she was holding a small flame. She tapped her knife against the crystal. Everyone turned. My mother stopped cutting the ham. My father lowered his fork. My Aunt Carol leaned forward. My brother-in-law, Eric, sat beside Lauren, with his hand around his water glass, staring at the tablecloth. Lauren said, "Since we're all sharing blessings tonight, I just want to say how grateful I am for my beautiful family. Some women spend years chasing something God clearly didn't intend for them, but I've learned to appreciate what I have." Then she looked directly at me. "Isn't that right, Amanda?" The room went so quiet I could hear the old grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. My fertility diagnosis had been private. My miscarriages had been private. The folder from Dr. Keene's office had been in a sealed envelope in my purse 3 weeks earlier, when Lauren offered to drive me home after a procedure because she said, "You shouldn't be alone." I had trusted her for 28 minutes. That was all it took. My mother whispered, "Lauren." Lauren gave a soft little laugh. "What? We're family. We should be honest." I sat there with my hands folded in my lap, a green linen napkin across my knees, while my younger cousins looked at their plates and my Aunt Carol suddenly became fascinated by the cranberry sauce. I did not cry. I did not throw wine. I did not ask how she could be so cruel. What they didn't know was that for 3 months, I had known her husband was living a second life 3 states away. Not a rumor. Not a suspicion. A mortgage record. A birth certificate. Airline receipts. Photographs from a school fundraiser. And a Christmas card addressed to Eric, Claire, and the girls. This is that story. Before I tell you how one dining room full of people learned that the woman mocking my empty nursery had been sleeping beside a man with another family, tell me where you are watching or listening from, and what time it is there. I always wonder who hears these stories while the house is quiet and old wounds start speaking clearly. And if you connect with stories about women who were betrayed, underestimated, humiliated, and quietly took their power back, like and subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. Some women do not make scenes. Some women keep copies. I grew up in Ridgefield, Ohio, in a brick colonial on Willowmere Drive, with black shutters, a long front porch, and a dining room my mother treated like a chapel. That dining room had hosted every birthday, Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, graduation dinner, funeral lunch, and forced apology in our family for as long as I could remember. The table was solid cherry wood, bought by my parents in their first year of marriage, and polished every December until the surface reflected candlelight. My mother, Diane Blake, kept it covered most of the year with a lace cloth, but on holidays she removed the cloth and said, "This table has seen everything." She was wrong. That table had seen only what our family allowed to be spoken aloud. My father, Robert Blake, was a retired insurance adjuster who believed peace meant nobody making him uncomfortable. He was kind in easy ways. He shoveled neighbors' driveways. He remembered oil changes. He told waitresses to keep the change. But when pain entered the room wearing a familiar face, he looked down and waited for it to pass. My mother was warmer, but more dangerous, because she thought naming cruelty was worse than enduring it. She loved both her daughters, but she loved the idea of a beautiful family more. If Lauren hurt me, Mom called it jealousy. If I objected, she called it tension. If I withdrew, she called it sadness and brought me soup, as if soup could replace accountability. Lauren was 2 years younger than me and had been the golden child since birth. She was blonde, bright, charming, and naturally good at becoming whatever adults wanted to praise. At 8, she sang in church. At 13, she cried prettily when caught lying about a school dance. At 17, she totaled my father's old sedan and somehow ended the evening being comforted because she was shaken. At 24, she married Eric Caldwell in a vineyard wedding that cost more than my first condo. and everyone said she had found exactly the life she deserved. I was the older daughter, the responsible one, the one who helped clear plates before dessert. I built a career as a claims investigator for a regional insurance company, which meant I spent my days reading documents people hoped no one would connect: fire reports, medical billing records, property ownership histories, photos with timestamps, mileage logs. People thought insurance work was boring. It was not. It taught me that lies rarely collapse because someone confesses. They collapse because paperwork refuses to flatter them. I was married once, briefly, to a gentleman named Mark, who wanted children as badly as I did, but not badly enough to survive grief with me. We lost our first pregnancy at 10 weeks, our second at 6, and our third at 12. After the third, the doctor used the words diminished ovarian reserve and uterine scarring. Mark stopped touching the baby name book on my nightstand. 6 months later, he told me he could not live inside the sadness anymore. I did not blame him in the dramatic way people expected. I simply never looked at him the same. After the divorce, I moved into a small townhouse near Briar Creek, 15 minutes from my parents, with a narrow kitchen, a tiny patio, and one spare room I could not bring myself to repaint. The walls were still pale yellow because I had chosen that color when I thought it would be a nursery. My symbolic object in this story was a small silver baby spoon. It had been mine when I was born. My grandmother had given it to my mother, and my mother gave it to me after my first positive pregnancy test. It was engraved with my initials, AMB, and wrapped in tissue inside a little blue velvet box. For luck, Mom said. After the losses, I kept it in my dresser drawer. Not because I thought it had failed me. Because grief sometimes needs an object small enough to hold. Lauren knew about the spoon. Lauren knew everything because there had been a time when I believed sisters were safe places. She sat beside me after my second miscarriage and cried into my hospital blanket. She brought magazines I never read. She drove me to Dr. Keene's office once, when Mark had a deposition in Columbus. She held my hand in the elevator and said, "You don't have to pretend with me." I did not know then that some people collect your vulnerability the way others collect favors. The first time Lauren used my pain to make herself taller happened at her baby shower, 6 years before that Christmas dinner. She was pregnant with her first son, Caleb, and my mother hosted 40 women in the backyard under white tents. I had spent 2 days arranging flowers, labeling dessert trays, and tying blue ribbon around tiny jars of honey. During the gift opening, Lauren held up a handmade blanket from Aunt Carol and said, "Amanda is amazing at baby stuff. She's had so much practice planning." The sentence hung there. Some women laughed because they did not understand. Others looked at me because they did. Lauren glanced over and mouthed, "I didn't mean it." But she had. The second time was after her daughter Sophie was born. I had offered to bring dinner to her house because she was exhausted. I arrived at 6:15 with lasagna, salad, and a lemon cake. Lauren opened the door in leggings and a nursing top, holding Sophie against her shoulder. "Oh, good," she said. The childless aunt arrives with food. Eric laughed from the living room. I smiled because I did not know what else to do. Later, while I washed bottles at her sink, she said, "You're lucky in a way. You still get sleep. You still have your body. You can be the fun aunt without the sacrifice." I looked at her reflection in the kitchen window. "You think this feels lucky?" She softened just enough to deny responsibility. "I just meant, try to see the blessing." The third time was at our mother's 60th birthday dinner. A family friend asked if I had children. Before I could answer, Lauren said, "Amanda is focusing on her career. Some women choose differently." She said it with a smile. She said it while bouncing Sophie on her knee. She said it as if I had chosen paperwork over lullabies. I went home that night, opened the blue velvet box, held the silver spoon in my palm, and let myself cry, where no one could accuse me of making the evening uncomfortable. By the December everything changed. Lauren had built a life that looked perfect from the street. She and Eric lived in a 5-bedroom house in Westbrook Heights, with white columns, a Christmas wreath on every window, and a kitchen island large enough to land a small plane. Eric was 41, a regional sales director for a medical equipment company. He traveled constantly. Denver 1 week, Raleigh the next. Philadelphia, Nashville, Atlanta. Lauren complained about his travel but also enjoyed the way it made her sound important. Eric is impossible to pin down, she would say, twisting her wedding ring. Everyone needs him. They had 2 children, Caleb 7 and Sophie 4. Lauren dressed them in matching outfits for church and photographed them in pumpkin patches, orchards, and carefully messy pancake mornings. Her social media captions made motherhood sound like a luxury brand, blessed beyond measure, full hands, fuller heart, Caldwell Christmas magic. I did not resent her children. I loved them. That was part of what made her cruelty so precise. She knew I would never punish the children for her sins. The secret about Eric began in September, with a claim file on my desk. I was investigating a water damage claim on a rental property in Asheville, North Carolina. A pipe had burst in an upstairs bathroom and ruined the ceiling below. The policyholder's name was Claire Whitman. The co-mortgage contact attached to the property records was Eric Caldwell. At first I thought it was a different Eric Caldwell. It had to be. Then I saw the date of birth. Then the middle initial. Eric James Caldwell. My brother-in-law. The property address was a craftsman-style house on Alder Street in Asheville. Purchased 4 years earlier. Mortgage, jointly held by Eric J. Caldwell and Claire Elise Whitman. The claim photos showed a hallway with children's rain boots near the door and a framed family photograph on a console table. Eric stood in that photograph beside Claire and 2 little girls. One girl looked about 5. The other maybe 2. His hand rested on Claire's shoulder. The photograph was not romantic in a dramatic way. It was worse. It was domestic, normal, lived in. I stared at my computer screen for a long time while the office printer hummed behind me. My first instinct was to close the file and pretend I had not seen it. That is what old family training does. It teaches your hand to move toward silence before your mind has finished reading. But claims work has rules. I could not investigate a relative's matter without disclosing a conflict. I immediately notified my supervisor, Paula Nguyen, that I recognized a name connected to the file and needed to be removed. She reassigned it within the hour. Before I stepped away, I did not copy confidential claim materials. I did not misuse my job. I did what anyone can do. I searched public records. By the following Monday, I had confirmed the deed through Buncombe County records. Eric's name was on the property. Claire Whitman's name was on the property. Same mailing address. Same mortgage lender. Then I found a birth announcement from a local Asheville church newsletter. Amelia Rose Whitman Caldwell. Born May 14th. Parents, Claire Whitman and Eric Caldwell. My hands went cold. May 14th was the weekend Lauren had posted that Eric was stuck in Chicago because of a sales conference. I kept searching. There was another child. Lucy Ann Whitman Caldwell. Born 3 years earlier. 3 states away, my sister's husband had a second family with 2 daughters who carried his name. For 2 weeks, I told no one. I went to work. I answered emails. I took my mother to an ophthalmology appointment. I bought Caleb a dinosaur book for his birthday. I sat across from Eric at Sunday dinner while he helped Sophie cut chicken into tiny pieces and told my father a story about airport delays. He looked exactly like a man who believed distance was the same thing as concealment. At 9:40 that night, I went home and opened a folder on my laptop. I named it Asheville. I saved public records only. Deed search results. Birth announcement screenshots. A charity gala photo from Claire's employer, where Eric appeared behind her with his arm around her waist. A school fundraiser page listing Eric Caldwell as a donor under Whitman Caldwell family. A Christmas tree farm photo Claire had posted publicly 2 years earlier before making her account private. Eric holding one little girl on his shoulders while Claire held the other. I built it carefully. Not because I wanted to destroy Lauren. At first, I told myself I was building it because she deserved the truth. Then I admitted something more complicated. I was building it because one day Lauren would come for me again, and I was tired of entering rooms unarmed. 3 weeks before Christmas, I had a procedure at Dr. Keene's office. Not a hopeful procedure. A diagnostic one. The kind where doctors look for reasons your body became a locked door, and then use gentle voices when the answers are not encouraging. Lauren offered to drive me. I said no twice. She insisted. "Manda," she said, using the childhood nickname she only brought out when she wanted access. "Please let me be your sister." I wanted to believe her. That was my mistake. The appointment ended at 11:35. I was groggy, cramping, and quiet. Lauren drove me home in her white SUV, one hand on the wheel, Christmas music playing softly. At my townhouse, she carried my purse inside because I was moving slowly. "You go sit," she said. "I'll get your tea." I went to the sofa. The spare room door was cracked open. The pale yellow walls seemed to glow in the gray winter light. Lauren was in the kitchen for several minutes. Too many. When she came out, she handed me tea and sat beside me. "What did the doctor say?" "I don't want to talk about it yet." Her face flickered. "Not even with me." "Not yet." She touched my knee. "Of course." After she left, I found my purse on the kitchen counter instead of by the sofa. The sealed envelope from Dr. Keene was still inside, but the flap sat slightly lifted, where the adhesive had been loosened and pressed back down. I stood there with the envelope in my hand. I wanted to be wrong, so I tested her. 2 days later, I told Lauren by text, "Please don't mention the appointment to Mom. I'm not ready." She replied with a heart. That Sunday, my mother called and said, too carefully, "Honey, Lauren mentioned you got difficult news." I closed my eyes. There it was. The small betrayal before the public one. I did not confront Lauren. I did not ask why. I did not give her the pleasure of denial. I opened the Asheville folder. I updated it. On December 20th, 4 days before Christmas Eve, a red envelope arrived at my townhouse by mistake. It was addressed to Eric Caldwell at my old street number, which made no sense until I recognized the return address. Alder Street, Asheville. Inside was a Christmas card. Not from a company. Not from a client. A family card. The front showed Eric, Claire, and the 2 little girls in matching pajamas in front of a fireplace. The printed message read, "Merry Christmas from the Whitman Caldwells." On the back, handwritten in blue ink, Claire had written, "Eric, I found this old address in your travel folder. Not sure if it is still useful, but mailing one here like you asked. The girls miss you already. Come back safe after Ohio. Love, C." I stood in my kitchen with the card in my hand while the radiator clicked. He had asked her to mail it. Maybe for some lie. Maybe for proof of residency. Maybe because managing 2 lives required so many small systems that even careful men became sloppy. I photographed the envelope, the card, the postmark, and the message. Then I placed the original in a clear sleeve and put it in the Asheville folder. Christmas dinner at my parents' house was always on December 25th at 6 in the evening. My mother lit cranberry candles. My father carved ham. Aunt Carol brought green bean casserole. Tyler, our cousin from Toledo, brought his new girlfriend. Lauren arrived late enough to be noticed and early enough to be forgiven. I arrived at 5:40, wearing a forest green dress, black heels, and a wool coat. In my purse, beneath my lipstick and phone, was a slim leather folder containing copies of the public documents and the Christmas card. I did not plan to use it. That is the truth. I had decided to speak to Lauren privately after New Year's. Not because she deserved privacy after reading my medical envelope, but because her children deserved a holiday untouched by adult ruin. I was willing, even then, to protect the room. Lauren was not. Dinner began beautifully, which is often how terrible evenings disguise themselves. The table was set with gold chargers and my mother's cream china. The ham smelled like cloves and brown sugar. Snow tapped against the windows in soft little grains. Caleb showed me a Lego spaceship he had built. Sophie climbed into my lap before dinner and whispered, "Aunt Amanda, Daddy brought me a music box from his trip." Eric heard her and smiled at me. "Airport gift shop miracle," he said. I smiled back. "Which airport?" He blinked once. "Denver." I knew he had been in Asheville. At 6:55 we sat down. My father said grace. My mother dabbed her eyes at the phrase, "grateful for family." Lauren squeezed Eric's hand. He looked tired. For the first 20 minutes, I let the evening be what it pretended to be. Then Aunt Carol asked if I was still volunteering with the children's literacy program at the library. I said yes. Lauren said, "Amanda is wonderful with other people's children." The table tightened. I looked at her. She smiled into her wine. My mother said, "Lauren." "What? It's a compliment." I returned to my plate. At 7:17, Tyler's girlfriend announced that her sister was expecting twins. Everyone made happy sounds. My mother asked about names. Lauren leaned back in her chair and said, "Babies are such a blessing. It's hard when people can't accept that some blessings aren't meant for them." Eric's hand stopped moving. I saw it. His fork hovered over his plate, then lowered. I should have stood then. I should have left. But old training is stubborn. I stayed because leaving would have made me dramatic, and some part of me still hated giving Lauren the word she wanted. Then at 7:23 she tapped her knife against the crystal, and she announced my infertility to the table. She described it as concern. That was the art of it. She said, "Amanda has been through a lot medically, and I just think it's time we stop pretending this family isn't affected by it." My cousin Tyler said, "Lauren, stop." She did not. She's always so tense around my kids. I think it's grief, obviously. But at some point, you have to accept reality. Some of us are mothers, and some of us are meant to be aunts. A fork hit china. My mother whispered again, "Lauren." Lauren turned to me, eyes bright. "I'm saying this because I love you." That was the breaking point. Not because she revealed the diagnosis. Not even because she did it in front of everyone. Because she used love as a serving dish for cruelty. I placed my napkin on the table. Slowly. I looked at Eric first. He was pale. Then I looked at Lauren. I did not answer. I watched your hand on the glass. I counted 5 seconds. Then I understood something I should have understood years earlier. Lauren frowned. "What?" "You do not want honesty," I said. "You want permission." My father cleared his throat. "Amanda, let's not ruin Christmas." I turned to him. "Dad, Christmas was ruined at 7:23. The room went silent. Lauren laughed, but it was thinner now. "Oh, please. Don't be so dramatic." I opened my purse and removed the leather folder. Eric closed his eyes. That was how I knew he knew exactly what was inside. I did not raise my voice. I did not look at the children. Caleb and Sophie had already gone to the family room with my younger cousins to watch a Christmas movie, thank God for small mercies and noise. I placed the folder beside my plate. "Lauren," I said, "before you continue discussing what kind of mother I am not, I think you should ask Eric about Amelia and Lucy." The room changed. No one knew the names. Except one person. Eric's face drained completely. Lauren turned toward him. "What is she talking about?" He said nothing. Aunt Carol whispered, "Who are Amelia and Lucy?" I opened the folder. Not all at once, piece by piece. That mattered. First, the property record. I slid it toward Lauren. "This is a public deed record from Buncombe County, North Carolina. It shows a home on Alder Street, owned by Eric James Caldwell and Claire Elise Whitman." Lauren stared at the paper. "That's not him." I placed the mortgage record beside it. Same date of birth. Same middle name. Eric whispered, "Amanda." Lauren looked at him sharply. "Why is she saying your name like that?" I placed the birth announcement next. "This is from a church newsletter. Amelia Rose Whitman Caldwell. Born May 14th. Parents Claire Whitman and Eric Caldwell." Lauren pushed back from the table slightly. "No." I placed the second announcement down. "Lucy Ann Whitman Caldwell. Born 3 years earlier." My mother covered her mouth. My father said, "Eric?" Eric stared at the table. Lauren stood so quickly her chair scraped against the rug. No. This is disgusting. Amanda, you are disgusting." I looked up at her. "The children are real, Lauren." "You made this up." "I did not." "You photoshopped it." "I printed it from public records." "You're jealous. You're sick. You've always been jealous of my family." Eric said very quietly, "Lauren." She turned on him. "Tell her she's lying." He did not. That was the loudest silence of the night. Then I removed the Christmas card from the clear sleeve and placed it in front of her, a glossy photograph. Eric, Claire, Amelia, and Lucy in matching pajamas. "Merry Christmas from the Whitman Caldwells." Lauren looked at it. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. I had imagined, in darker moments, that revealing the truth would feel satisfying. It did not. It felt like watching a house catch fire after someone else poured gasoline around the walls. Lauren picked up the card with both hands. Her fingers shook. She turned it over and read the handwritten message. "The girls miss you already. Come back safe after Ohio. Love, C." My Aunt Carol began to cry softly. My father pushed his chair back. My mother said, "Eric, how long?" Eric rubbed both hands over his face. "Lauren, I can explain." Lauren laughed once. A broken, ugly sound. "You can explain, children?" "I was going to tell you." "When? At their graduations?" No one moved. The grandfather clock ticked. Snow touched the windows. Eric looked at me then. Not with anger. With pleading. As if I had done something worse by revealing the facts than he had done by creating them. I gave him nothing. Lauren's eyes turned back to me. "You knew?" "Yes." "For how long?" "Since September." Her face twisted. "And you waited until Christmas?" I folded my hands. "No, I waited until you announced my medical history to the table." That sentence landed exactly where it belonged. On the table. Beside the ham. Beside the wine. Beside the perfect Christmas centerpiece my mother had arranged with pine cones and gold ribbon. The room did not explode. It emptied itself of excuses. Lauren sat down slowly. For once, she had no performance ready. Eric began talking then. Men like Eric always mistake speech for repair once silence stops protecting them. He said he met Claire during a long sales route. He said it became complicated. He said Lauren was difficult after Sophie was born. He said Claire understood him. He said the first pregnancy was unexpected. He said the second happened when he was trying to make a decision. He said he loved all his children. He said he never meant for anyone to be hurt. Lauren stared at him, as if he were speaking a language she had once admired and suddenly recognized as fraud. My mother whispered, "The children." "Yes," I said, "the children." Lauren flinched. I had not said it cruelly. That may be why it hurt. Eric reached for Lauren's hand. She pulled away. "Do not touch me." Then she looked at me, and for the first time all night, her eyes held something other than arrogance. Not apology. Not yet. Only understanding. She understood that public humiliation has a taste. And now it was in her mouth. The aftermath began before dessert. Eric left the table at 8:12, after Lauren told him to get out of her sight. My father followed him to the front hall, not to comfort him, but because men like my father needed private rooms to understand public shame. Their voices stayed low. The front door opened. Cold air moved through the dining room. Then Eric was gone. Lauren sat at the table with the Christmas card in front of her. My mother tried to touch her shoulder. Lauren shrugged her off. "Did you know?" Lauren asked her. My mother recoiled. "Of course not." Lauren looked at our father when he came back. "Did you?" "No." Then she looked at me. "You should have told me." "Yes," I said. "I should have, privately, and I planned to." She swallowed. "Then why didn't you?" I looked at the green napkin beside my plate, because I was still deciding how to give you the truth without destroying your children's Christmas. Her eyes flickered. "And then I destroyed yours." I did not rescue her from the sentence. That was new for me. My father said, "Amanda, maybe it would be best if you went home." I looked at him. No. He blinked. I stood, picked up the leather folder, and placed the Christmas card back inside its sleeve. "I am not leaving because Lauren is embarrassed by facts she forced into the room." "Amanda," my mother said softly. I turned to her. "You taught us to keep peace. You never taught us what peace cost the person being cut open quietly at the table." My mother's eyes filled. "I never wanted that." "I know," I said, "but you allowed it." Short sentences. Clean ones. I looked at Lauren. "My medical history is not a family announcement. My grief is not your decoration. My body is not your evidence that you won." She closed her eyes. I picked up my coat from the chair near the doorway. Then I walked into the family room, kissed Caleb and Sophie on the tops of their heads, and told them, "Merry Christmas." Sophie handed me a red crayon drawing of a tree. I folded it carefully and put it in my purse. I drove home at 8:41, through streets glittering with Christmas lights and snow. My hands were steady on the wheel. The silver baby spoon was waiting in my dresser drawer, wrapped in blue velvet, small and quiet. When I got home, I took it out. For the first time in years, I did not hold it like proof of failure. I held it like proof that I had loved something before I lost it. That mattered too. I need to pause here for a second. If you have ever had someone use your most private pain as entertainment, as gossip, or as a way to make themselves look blessed beside your grief, then you know exactly what that table felt like. It was not about jealousy. It was not about bitterness. It was about being expected to protect people who never protected you. If this story is hitting close to home, leave a comment and tell me what private truth someone tried to weaponize against you. And if you have not already, subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. The quiet part is over. The second public payoff happened 3 weeks later in a conference room at Harlan Price and Voss, the law firm Lauren hired after Eric froze their joint account. She asked me to come, not directly at first. She texted me on January 7th at 9:20 in the morning. "Can you send me everything you have?" I replied, "Yes." She wrote, "Can you come with me to meet the attorney?" I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, "I can." The meeting was on January 12th at 11 in the morning. The conference room had frosted glass walls, a long white table, and a silver tray of water bottles no one touched. Lauren sat beside me in a beige sweater, no makeup, her hair pulled back in a loose knot. She looked smaller without performance, but not weaker. Just stripped of decoration. Across from us sat her attorney, Denise Harlan, a woman in her late 50s with sharp gray eyes and a calm voice. Eric sat at the opposite end of the table with his lawyer, a man named Brent Lawson, who looked expensive and annoyed to be losing control. Denise opened with facts. "Mr. Caldwell, we are here to address immediate financial disclosures, marital asset concerns, and the existence of undisclosed dependents and property." Eric's lawyer said, "My client is prepared to be cooperative, but we will not participate in character assassination." Denise looked at the folder in front of me. No one needs assassination when public records are available. Lauren's mouth tightened, but she did not smile. Denise asked me to confirm how I had found the records without using confidential work material. I explained clearly. I disclosed the conflict at work. I removed myself from the claim. I found only public documents afterward. Denise nodded. Eric's lawyer wrote something down, then stopped when Denise placed certified property records on the table. Piece by piece, again. The deed, the mortgage, the birth announcements, the public donor listing. Travel receipts Lauren had found in Eric's laptop after Christmas. Hotel statements. A hidden credit card. Transfers from a business expense account to cover school tuition in Asheville. Lauren sat very still. Eric tried denial first. The property was an investment. Denise slid the Christmas card forward. Investments rarely send matching pajama photos. He tried minimizing. Claire knew my situation was complicated. Lauren spoke for the first time. "Did she know you were married?" Eric looked at his hands. "Yes." The room went quiet. Lauren inhaled once, but she did not break. Denise asked, "Did your employer know you were using business travel to maintain a household in Asheville?" Eric's lawyer said, "We are not here to discuss employment matters." Denise placed a spreadsheet on the table. "We are if marital funds reimbursed by employer accounts were diverted into undisclosed family expenses." Eric's face changed. There it was. The moment a man realizes the betrayal is no longer emotional, it is financial. The lawyer's office became colder. Brent Lawson leaned toward Eric and whispered. Denise waited. Lauren stared at the spreadsheet as if numbers had become a second language of betrayal. Then Denise asked one question. "Mr. Caldwell, how many children do you have?" Eric closed his eyes. Lauren looked at him. For 7 years she had introduced herself as the mother of 2. For 7 years he had let her. He answered, barely above a whisper, 4. Lauren's hand moved under the table. I thought she was reaching for a tissue. Instead, she reached for mine. I let her take it. That did not erase what she had done to me at Christmas. Forgiveness is not a light switch. But there are moments when even broken sisters recognize the same knife. The meeting ended with temporary support agreements, emergency financial disclosures, and a demand that Eric preserve all records. Denise instructed Lauren not to speak with him privately without counsel. Eric tried to approach her in the hallway anyway. "Lauren, please, don't let Amanda poison this." Lauren stopped. For a second, I saw the old Lauren rise in her face. The one who might have turned, blamed me, protected the husband, because humiliation needed somewhere to go. Then she looked at him and said, "Amanda didn't make your daughters real." He had no answer. On the elevator down, Lauren stood beside me without speaking. The doors reflected us faintly. Two sisters, both tired, both older than we had been on Christmas morning. When we reached the lobby, she said, "I read your medical envelope." I looked straight ahead. "I know." I told Mom. "I know." I told myself I was worried. The elevator doors opened. We stepped into the marble lobby. She said, "I wasn't." I turned to her. Lauren's eyes were red, but she was not crying. "I wanted to hurt you because I thought your sadness judged me," she said, "and because if you were the tragic one, then I was safe." I did not comfort her, but I listened. She swallowed. "I am sorry, Amanda. Not because Eric got exposed. Not because everyone saw. I am sorry because I used the thing that hurt you most and called it honesty." The lobby was full of people in coats, carrying briefcases and coffee. Nobody knew that one of the most important sentences of my life had just been said beside a directory sign. I nodded once. "Thank you for saying it correctly." Her mouth trembled. "I don't know how to fix it." "You don't fix it today." "What do I do?" "You stop using pain as currency." She looked down. "And you?" I thought of the silver spoon in my dresser, the pale yellow room. The years I had spent letting other people decide whether my grief was convenient. I stopped letting people spend mine. The months that followed were messy. Eric's life divided badly, because lies may be built in secret, but they are dismantled in paperwork. Lauren filed for divorce. Claire Whitman hired her own attorney. The children, all 4 of them, became the only innocent names in rooms full of adults explaining choices. Eric's employer opened an internal review after irregular reimbursements surfaced. Lauren sold the Westbrook Heights house because she said every room in it had become evidence. My parents struggled, in the way parents do when family myths begin dying before they do. My father wanted Christmas forgotten. "Everybody was emotional," he said to me in February. "No," I said. "Everybody was informed." He did not like that. My mother tried to bridge things with casseroles and softened language. She came to my townhouse one Sunday afternoon with chicken soup and a small bakery box. "I should have stopped Lauren sooner," she said while standing in my kitchen. "Yes." She looked startled, as if she had expected me to deny it for her. I did not. "She always seemed so fragile when she wasn't praised," Mom said, "and I seemed strong when I was hurting." My mother set the soup on the counter. "I see that now." I wanted to ask why seeing required so much blood on the table. Instead, I said, "Good." Healing did not make me sentimental. It made me precise. Lauren and I did not become instantly close. That would have been dishonest. She had done real damage. But she began doing something she had avoided her entire life. She told the truth even when it made her look bad. At Easter, she pulled me aside before dinner and said, "Aunt Carol asked about your treatments." I told her it was none of her business. I said, "Thank you." She nodded. Small steps, not redemption, not yet, but steps. I also changed. I stopped attending every family dinner out of obligation. I stopped letting my mother summarize my life to relatives. I stopped smiling when people asked whether I had considered adoption in the same tone they used to recommend a new brand of laundry detergent. I stopped giving long explanations to people who only wanted access, not understanding. In May, I repainted the spare room. Not as a nursery, not as a memorial, as a reading room. I chose deep blue walls, walnut shelves, a cream chair, and a brass floor lamp. I framed Sophie's red crayon Christmas tree drawing and hung it near the window. On the small table beside the chair, I placed the blue velvet box with the silver baby spoon inside. For years, I had hidden it because I thought it announced absence. Now I let it exist, because absence is still part of a life. One Saturday afternoon, Lauren came over with Caleb and Sophie. The divorce was not final yet. Her face was thinner. Her children were quieter. She stood in the doorway of the blue room and looked at the shelves. "It's beautiful," she said. "Thank you." Her eyes went to the velvet box. She did not ask. That was growth too. Sophie ran her hand along the lower shelf and said, "Aunt Amanda, can we read here?" I looked at Lauren. Lauren said, "Ask your aunt." I smiled. "Yes," I said. "We can read here." I sat in the cream chair while Sophie curled against me with a picture book, and Caleb sprawled on the rug with a stack of dinosaur encyclopedias. Lauren stood in the doorway for a moment, then went downstairs to make tea. The room was not what I had dreamed when I painted it yellow years earlier. But it was alive. Different is not always lesser. That took me a long time to learn. A year after that Christmas dinner, my mother hosted again. Smaller this time. No speeches, no knife tapping against crystal. Lauren arrived with the children and a store-bought pie because she no longer pretended she could do everything beautifully. Eric was not there. My father was careful with his words. Aunt Carol did not ask about my uterus, which I counted as holiday progress. At dinner, my mother raised her glass and said, "To peace." I lifted mine but did not drink. Lauren looked at me across the table. Then she said, quietly but clearly, "To truth first." The room paused. My mother's eyes moved between us. Then she nodded. "To truth first." That was the closest our family came to becoming honest. After dinner, Lauren helped me wash dishes. The kitchen window reflected us, standing side by side. Steam rising from the sink, Christmas lights blurred behind us. She handed me a plate. "I used to think you were judging me," she said. "I know." "Were you?" I dried the plate slowly. "Sometimes." She looked at me. I continued, "But not because you had children, because you had everything I wanted and still chose to be cruel with it." She accepted that. I deserved that. "I'm not trying to punish you." "I know." I put the plate away. I wanted children, Lauren. I still do, in some version of my heart. But what hurt most was everyone acting like my grief made me less complete. Like womanhood was a room I could only enter through motherhood. Lauren turned off the faucet. "You are not less complete." The words were late. They still mattered. That night, when I went home, I opened the blue room window even though it was cold. Snow fell quietly beyond the glass. The silver spoon rested in its velvet box. I touched it once, then closed the lid. I thought about Eric's second family, about Claire and the girls, about Lauren's humiliation, about my own, about all the ways people build beautiful dining rooms and call them homes, while secrets rot underneath the floorboards. I did not feel victorious. I felt awake. There is a difference. Revenge, the kind people imagine, is hot. It wants applause. It wants someone on their knees. But truth is colder and cleaner than revenge. It does not need to exaggerate. It does not need to insult. It simply arrives with dates, names, signatures, addresses, and a Christmas card someone forgot could travel to the wrong mailbox. My sister announced my infertility because she thought my pain made her powerful. I announced her husband's second family because the truth had been waiting long enough, and when the room went silent, I finally understood that silence is not always surrender. Sometimes silence is the moment before a woman opens the folder. Thank you for staying with me through this story. I know some wounds are hard to hear because they are not loud from the outside. They happen at dinner tables, in family jokes, in little comments dressed up as concern. If Amanda's story reached you, I hope you remember that your private pain is not public property, and no one gets to call cruelty honesty just because they say it with a smile. Subscribe to Ultimate Revenge for more stories about quiet women, family betrayal, silent comebacks, and the kind of truth that waits until everyone is listening. So tell me, if someone exposed your most private heartbreak in front of the whole family, would you walk away quietly, or would you open the folder and let their own secrets answer them?